Hello, weirdos, freaks, and degenerates, and basement dwellers, and all you beautiful scrufftards. Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And we are gonna take a look at a couple of locations where Ukraine keeps advancing and forcing the Russians back. Gonna take a look at the front line in general, but we're gonna focus on two locations where we see Ukraine advancing. Very interesting. And we might see an indication of what is happening and going on in and around Kupiansk as a result of what Ukraine is doing and what Russia is doing. Big surprise. Anyway, and towards the end, another one of my big rants. So sorry, I get carried away, but yeah, I'm ranting about Russian advances and Russia's intentions in this war. And why they're in the war. And you're gonna find out. Anyway, over to the maps. Right, so starting off with Andrew Perpetua's map up in Sumy Oblast and Tetkino. Not many changes concerning the front lines, but we do have some interesting updates. If we zoom in primarily here, take a look what this is. Russian shelling. I even have some images of it, and this is geolocated. Is this these vehicles? Does that indicate Ukrainian vehicles pushing up? What the hell is that? I don't know. Anyway, Russian shelling up here. Remember, it was down here the other day, going back to the 23rd. Russian shelling, rocket strikes at this part of the forest, indicating Ukraine had moved up. And now on the 24th, you have artillery strikes up here. This is not in the gray area. This is not contested according to Andrew for whatever reason. This area down here is contested on the Mayakovsk 73 map, I believe. Yeah, so Mayakovsk 73 has this area here contested. He has not included these strikes. So I guess he hasn't seen those yet or been made aware. Going back to Andrew. But I mean, apart from that, not much happening with shifting front lines, at least. We have a couple of days back, like I said, on the 24th, Russian civilian vehicles, Russian minivans, I should say, on the move here and getting targeted by Ukrainian drones. Now, but if we move over to Mayakovsk 73, take a look what happens in the next town over, Viktorovka. Take a look at this. What? Viktorovka, take a look. 4 Russian artillery pieces, and this was from the 25th. So yesterday, Ukraine took out 4 on the same date. 4 artillery pieces on the same date. This is a big blow to Russia locally on the operational level, losing 4 artillery pieces in the area. Massive blow to Russian capacity in Sumy Oblast. Really important by the strike by the Ukrainians. We have here a Ukrainian strike at Russian positions in Yunakivka. Interesting, an airstrike. And this is the old tank battle, yeah. And this airstrike was on the 25th. Again, a successful airstrike by Ukraine in this area, where we seem to have air parity between Russia and Ukraine. The Russians are complaining about the efficiency and the accuracy and the amount of Ukrainian airstrikes in this area in general. So this is a section of the front line where Ukraine has, I would say, the advantage. Really, they have air parity. So they can conduct reasonably efficient airstrikes in the area. Even if the Russians can strike back. You can see here, these are more than likely glide bombs indicating airstrikes, right? So absolutely, but Ukraine can dish out punishment right back at the Russians with the Air Force. And And like I've pointed out, this is probably the third phase of the Kursk incursion. The first phase was to push in and secure as much territory as possible in Sudzha Rayon, Koronevo Rayon, and Glishkovo Rayon. Glishkovo didn't go as according to plan for the Ukrainians, but they took Sudzha Rayon and they essentially took Koronevo Rayon, but failed in taking Koronevo city. That was the first phase. Second phase was to hold for as long as possible, to draw as many Russian assets as possible into Kursk, away from the front lines in Ukraine, and tie them down for as long as possible in Russia instead, right? Weakening Russian forces in Ukraine and tying them up in Russia. And then slowly fall back, because the Ukrainians realized we can't hold territory in Russia indefinitely. Sooner or later, Russia will allocate so much manpower that we will be pushed back, which happened. And then, of course, Ukraine realized that means we will have a large Russian force on the border with Sumy, and more than likely Russia will try and follow us into Sumy. So Ukraine, my guess is that Ukraine prepared for this scenario. They prepared defenses all along the border here, ready for wherever Russia decided to attack. Would they attack down here, over here, wherever? And Russia did as Ukraine suspected, and they walked into a massive trap. And that is why Ukraine could put a stop to this incursion and is now counterattacking. A Swedish source claims that Ukraine fires something like hundreds, if not thousands, of artillery shells daily in this area, and we can see it on the firm's map, primarily up here. Lots and lots of fires burning in the Tekhino area. And we also have the airstrikes indicating some form of air parity in the region as well. So this does appear to be the third phase of the Kursk incursion, the trap within Sumy Oblast itself, grinding down the Russians and pushing back. So overall, what does it look like? I've taken some liberty to highlight this portion here as Ukrainian. True or not, I don't know, but it is what it is on my map. So what we're having is Ukraine pushing in successfully into Andriivka. They've conducted strikes against Oleksivka for a couple of days. Tank assault south of Yablonivka, holding the line in Yunakivka. Russia is not advancing anymore. And then they made a push on the left flank, taking some territory here, putting pressure on Kindrakivka in the west. And in a couple of days, maybe potentially, they made a 4-kilometer push out of Sadki north towards Oleshnia. Oleshnia is within Russia, but on the eastern flank. So this is an area where Ukraine is, by the looks of it, currently have operational initiative. They have momentum. Russia has pushed into prepared kill zones, prepared kill boxes. Ukraine is launching artillery and airstrikes, and hunting down the Russians with drones far behind the lines. And now they're pushing in with infantry all along the front line in Sumy Oblast. So it does appear as if Ukraine does have the advantage at the moment. It may change in a couple of days, it may change a week from now, but right here and now, Ukraine has operational initiative in Sumy Oblast, and they are wreaking havoc on the Russians. Okay, so jumping over to Mayakovsk, here we can see the multiple strikes on Oleksivka, by the way. As you can see, Ukraine has begun a bit of a campaign aimed at Oleksivka. See if there might be some infantry pushing in there soon as well. Anyway, moving down, this is Mayakovsk 73's map, and we are going to move down. We can take a quick look at Kupiansk, since it was the headline of my previous video here. I think this is important. I think this Ukraine should be worried about this. Russia has pushed in to Kindrakivka, not entirely, but they're operating here. Coming south of Kindrakivka, at Hulebivka and Radkivka, it's confirmed by Andrew Perpetua as well. And that puts Russia 2 kilometers north of Kupiansk's outskirts. And Russia has the ability, if they take Radkivka, they can move through these woods southward in cover. Maybe even establish a forward base of operations in, this does appear to be a factory gas? Power station, maybe? Anyway, so yes, here we have the potential of pushing down in cover. Radkivka could definitely become a forward base of operations. And then you can push down in cover, like I said, and begin operations within Kupiansk. And this is important because essentially we have 4 or 6 bridges along the river here, and they have all been blown up by Russia. Let's take a look again. Here we saw an image the other day. Was it on Andrew? Let's take a look. We're going back here. Let's move back. This bridge. Yeah, if we take a look at this image. Yeah, here we can see all bridges are blown up. So this was from the other day. So these bridges are blown up. We saw that from drone footage. Okay, but that means this bridge appears intact here. But if we use Andrew's map and go up to Sadova, it looks destroyed, right? But take a look at this section here, right where that bridge is destroyed. If we move, there's something right here. They have repaired the bridge, haven't they? This is a repaired bridge. Okay. Is this... No, this was destroyed. We saw that on Andrew's map. So is this an older image? I think Andrew might have an updated map. This bridge is destroyed. This bridge is destroyed. And if we move up here, this bridge is definitely destroyed. This bridge looks the same on all the maps. And then you have this bridge here. You can see columns of Ukrainian army trucks moving logistics back and forth. This is the last bridge standing across the Oskil River in the Kupiansk area. And so if Russia begins pushing into Kupiansk and reach that river, that means that this entire pocket potentially has no way to move logistics in volume across the river. They can still use boats and what have you, helicopters maybe, but it's not gonna be in the same volumes that you get from trucks driving across a highway or across this bridge. Right, it's gonna slow down logistics. Frontline troops will reduce less ammo, less food, less fuel, less water, less medical equipment, and it's gonna affect the front line, and that is gonna give potentially Russia an advantage to keep pushing and forcing the Ukrainians back. So if Russia can push into Kupiansk and begin pushing towards that bridge, it could force Ukraine to, in a couple of months maybe, abandon this part of the battlefield. Unless they can establish good enough logistics across the river. But I mean, drones will be hunting down boats trying to cross, right? Then again, there's the issue of pushing through Kupiansk. Russia would need a lot of manpower to do that. And now we're coming into something interesting. Russia will they see an opportunity here. They know how important that bridge is, so they want that bridge in order to affect this entire front line. That means they're going to allocate manpower up here to make this push as soon as possible while they have momentum. And when they enter Kupiansk, that's going to be deadly as hell. In an urban area, you need... conventional wisdom says a 10-to-1 advantage in a firefight to win that firefight. Against fortified positions, say you have trench lines in these woods, then you need a 5-to-1 advantage pre-drone warfare. These numbers might have increased with drones, obviously, but we're going with the pre-warfare because those numbers are established. So if we have trench lines all over here in these woods, Russia needs a 5-to-1 advantage on average to push through, but once they begin entering the town, they need a 10-to-1 advantage to engage and win firefights. So as you can imagine, they need a lot of manpower coming in here to the north to threaten Kupiansk to reach this bridge. And this is interesting because we're now going to head on over to Mayakovsk 73 again. And as you can see, they're pushing in north. Because slightly south of Kupiansk, Russia might have some issues. Take a look. Ukraine has secured the entirety of Zeleny High and taken some surrounding areas. According to Mayakovsk 73, they have definitely pushed Russia out of Zeleny High, this small village. And this is the area I keep returning to, isn't it? Where Ukraine constantly is pushing Russia back, slowly, ever so slightly. And I mean, we can see it on Andrew's map here. We're moving south of Kupiansk. Take a look. This is where Ukraine has had success of late. We're going to repeat it. This here is where Ukraine has been pushing steadily for a couple of days, for the past month, I think. Previously, they made some gains down here around Buslavka, outflanking the Russians and forcing them north. Primarily in this woods here. In these woods, they've pushed into Zarizhove, taken streets. They've secured this hill. This is basically a fortress on a hill. This forest. This is a round hill surrounded by creeks that kind of forms a moat, and then you have some villages surrounding it. And I mean, they must have fortified this with trenches and foxholes and barbed wire like you wouldn't believe. I wonder if we can see anything of it. Zooming in. No, nothing. I thought was it on Mayakovsk's map? Ooh, is that clouds or is that something else? Well, here you can see destroyed buildings. Yeah, take a look. You didn't see this on Andrew's map. That feels more updated. Maybe the bridges are up and running. That's interesting. Okay, so here you have destroyed buildings. These buildings were not destroyed on Andrew's map. Sorry, we're now jumping back and forth. Take a look. This building is intact. Not so anymore. Okay, so this is a more recent map. And on the more recent map, where the hell is the bridge? But the drone strikes showed that this bridge was destroyed. Maybe it's different. Different parts of the maps rely on different satellite image from different dates. Weird. I don't know how to interpret all of this. Anyway, returning to this topic here. This is where Russia has been advancing in this area. They've been pushing up in Ukraine. Ukraine has been advancing in this area and pushing Russia back from these woods. They've been pushing up here, Ukraine, into Zarizhove, and they've been pushing out here for a couple of weeks now. They're in control of this part of this this fortified hill. God damn it! And can we see? I saw this on one of them. Yeah, take a look. Fortifications. This is what Ukraine pushed in and secured the other day. These trenches here, and likewise up here. These are on. I think it's the Ukraine control map that they are on the Ukrainian control. Those trench lines. I'm too far north. Here we go. Yeah. So according to the Ukraine control map, these trenches are under Ukrainian control, as well as these trenches down here. Interesting. I'm just going to zoom in here again. Yeah, he's using the same map as Mayakovsk 73, the smoke or the clouds are the same, and these buildings here are the same. So yeah, jumping back to Mayakovsk. So these trenches may or may not be under Ukrainian control. You have some more trenches north of those positions. Interesting. Russian held. Nothing over here. Okay, interesting. But I have completely lost the point. Here is where Ukraine keeps advancing, and now they've done it again. And yes, manpower issues. That's where that's what we were talking about. Jesus Christ. I have only slept for a couple of hours, so I'm blaming sleep deprivation. Okay. So, Andrew Perpetua, when he's been watching videos of Ukraine pushing into these positions, he's been studying drone strikes behind Russian lines in this area here, where Ukraine has steadily been pushing. And I've been talking about this area for ages, haven't I? He's noticed that Russian positions are very thinly manned. There are very few Russians in each dugout and trench line in this area. And that allows Ukraine to push. And steadily push both north and primarily south of this bulge. And now we're seeing it again. And if this area has so few troops, could that be that Russia has moved them up here to facilitate this push and now getting ready for pushing to Kupiansk and fighting in the city? Could that be the reason? That they have moved troops from down here to fight up here? Maybe. But that's also interesting. That means that they are short on manpower in the area in general if they have to take troops from down here to fight up here instead of just moving in reinforcements and maintaining a good proper defensive line down here while conducting the assault up here. They have to weaken potentially they have to weaken this front line to reinforce up here. Maybe. Interesting. But this, again, Ukraine keeps advancing here. Remember a couple of months back, they took Nadia in grand fashion with the 3rd Assault Brigade. The 3rd Assault Brigade has since then been placed in command of the core structure operating in this part of the front line. And that might also have effect on the front line, because the 3rd Assault Brigade is known for being heavily influenced by Western thinking and NATO doctrine and NATO tactics. Trying as best as they can to implement Western-style combat into their operations. And if they are now in charge of a core, maybe that is trickling down to the battalions that they are in command of, potentially. And that might also help Ukraine pushing in the area here south of this bulge. Also interesting, if Russia is pulling troops from here to mount an assault into Kupiansk, if Russia reaches this bridge, then this entire pocket is at risk. Potentially. The bridge is a massive question mark on all the bridges here, since we don't know which map is the most accurate at the moment. But Ukraine has an opportunity, I think. If this part of the battlefield is weak, Ukraine might be forced to try and push north here through Kryla-Yakivka to link up with the forces up here, right? So they need to open up a supply line from the south if Russia takes and cuts the supply line through Kupiansk, unless the other bridges are open. And it's not impossible to imagine Ukraine might achieve it if the front line here is weaker than it is supposed to be, because Russia has moved troops north instead. I'm not seeing any other massive trench works here. We have some trenches a bit further north. Here's one. Here's another one. Okay. Yeah, so we'll see how this plays out. And then I think Russia, they're on a roll. They want that bridge. I think they're mounting an assault from the north. We'll see how that plays out. I could be wrong, but I mean, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you want to push for that bridge? The question is then, where do you get the troops to fight through Kupiansk? Maybe from down here, and maybe Ukraine is exploiting that fact. Interesting. Apart from that, not much else is happening. It's basically the same across the front line. Small gains by Russia, as we keep pointing out. I'm going to highlight it once again because it's fun to piss off the Vatniks and they can't handle it. I'm going to zoom out, and here we have Ukraine, and here with Ukraine in its entirety. So we're going to remove some of these things. Right. So the Vatniks, they keep claiming, haha, Russia is attacking every day, gaining ground every day. Ukraine is losing. So I'm going to point this out once again to piss them off. White line is the Russian defensive line built in 2022-2023. This area here is the primary area of the Russian advance. As you can see, they haven't really pushed out all that far here between Kupiansk and Lyman. Not all that much into Sumy Oblast either. Barely noticeable here in Kharkiv. But so it's here that they are advancing, right? And as you can see, that's a tiny, tiny portion of Ukraine in total. And now I will tell you how tiny. This is 1% of Ukraine. 1%. Russia is advancing every day. The Ukrainian front line is collapsing. It has taken Russia 2 years to achieve this. And we know this because in September of 2023 was when Russia began the assault on Avdiivka. And after Avdiivka, they pushed out to Ochrytyn, and right away after they had Ochrytyn, they began pushing towards Pokrovsk. Right? Everyone remembers these events. So by September 2025, it will be roughly 2 years from the start of the assault on Avdiivka. That means that 1% of Ukraine has been secured in 2 years' time. Think about what that means. That is 0.5% per year. Does that sound like collapsing front lines to you? Is the Ukrainian front line collapsing if Russia secures 0.5% per year of Ukraine? How many thousands of Russians have died? Ignore Ukrainian numbers. How many thousands of Russians have died in 2 years' time to secure 1% of Ukraine? Right? I mean, this is not a collapsing front line, and Russia is suffering severe casualties for very little gains. Very little gains. Right? I think someone didn't someone do the math and concluded that, okay, based on Ukrainian numbers, okay, granted, but Russia is losing something like 7 soldiers per meter advance that they advance. 7 soldiers to gain 1 meter in Ukraine. Not dead and wounded. Right, so 1 or 2 dead, and then the rest, 5 or 6, are wounded, right? For every meter they advance. And you're talking about war of attrition? I mean, I don't know how you can spin this as being, yeah, mighty Russia, if you imagine this, the viewpoint that Ukraine is inferior to Russia. Russia is a superpower. that is currently winning over Ukraine and 50 other nations. Really? Is that what we're seeing here? Russia winning over Ukraine and 50 other nations? At the cost that Russia is paying for every square inch in Ukraine? I don't know, dude. So yeah, if you're a Vatnik, if you're pro-Russian, please do have an opinion. It's always a fun read. Now, if you're gonna, they always like to highlight, they took 20%. It's 20% of Ukraine. Ha ha ha. Okay, let's think about this for a moment. During the first month of this war, Russia took what, 25 to 30% of Ukraine? In 2022, at the end of 2022, Russia had been pushed back here and they held 18% of Ukraine. So they went from 25 or 30 to 18 in less than a year. And since then, they have gained 1%. Okay? It's 2025. We're like 3 years in. So Russia had success in the first month, and since then, not that much. Right? They haven't had that many successes since that first month. I mean, they were out. I mean, they lost the great battles at Kyiv, the battles at Kharkiv, at Kherson, forced to flee, forced to withdraw, to run away. And then they got invaded in Kursk. They had to leave Sevastopol with their Black Sea Fleet because they couldn't stop Ukrainian missiles flying in. Ukraine keeps bombing Russian oil production, having reduced their oil production by 20%. And now they've also lost a third of their bomber fleet because Ukrainian drones can pop out of nowhere, anywhere. Ukrainian drones are striking military targets in Moscow and St. Petersburg and elsewhere. So, I mean, what has Russia achieved other than committing genocide and mass murder, targeting civilians all over Ukraine, blowing up apartment buildings, trains filled with civilians, targeting schools and hospitals, targeting shopping malls, right? Parks and playgrounds. Beyond targeting civilians and committing mass murder, terrorists. I mean, imagine if I'm confident that you Vatniks, you're no fan of immigrants. Imagine if an immigrant took a car and drove down the street and killed a bunch of people. Not unlikely. I mean, it's happened a couple of times. That guy would be a terrorist, right? Deliberately targeting civilians. What is Russia doing? Deliberately targeting civilians all over Ukraine. Deliberately targeting hospitals all over Ukraine. Clear acts of terrorism, right? That means that the Russian regime is a terrorist regime. And that Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is essentially Iran or Afghanistan on steroids, right? This is what Iran wants to do with Western countries, with the United States more specifically. Iran would love to treat United States the way Russia is treating Ukraine. Just bombing the hell out of all the civilians. So how the hell can you justify Russia's actions when they're targeting civilians? And now you're going to go, I'm on a rant. My usual rants. And now they're going to go, Ukraine is run by Nazis. Yeah. Sure. Because that's why no one in the world believes that except Russia, who claim Russia doesn't even believe it. It's just a bullshit argument to justify the war to the uneducated Russian population. And weirdos around the globe, obviously, who fall for the trick as well, weirdly enough. Or, I mean, NATO expansion? Come on, give me a break. What is NATO about? Mutual defense, so that if a NATO country becomes invaded, everyone teams up and joins in on the fight. That means the only reason to be against NATO is if you have plans on invading countries. Because if countries join NATO, that means that's one country less you can invade. So NATO is not a threat to peaceful countries. But Russia isn't a peaceful country. Russia has started like 5 wars in 20 years. Invading neighboring countries all over the place. And that is why Russia is against NATO. Because if countries join NATO, then Russia can't invade those countries. You know, do you want to know what this is all about now? They're going to go, oh, it's a conspiracy, CIA, yada, yada. Ukraine overthrew the pro-Russian oligarchs and became independent and started to shift away from Russian dominance over their culture and their finances and economy and their political parties, right? They managed to break away from Russia politically and economically. And Russia realized if it could happen in Ukraine, it can happen in Belarus. And if it can happen in Ukraine and Belarus, it sure as hell can happen in Russia. So they decided to put a stop to it before the plague of freedom spread to Belarus and into Russia. That is why Ukraine was attacked. And the war will not end simply because if it ends now with a Ukrainian victory, Putin will go down in Russian history as the one douchebag that lost a war, and according to Russian history books, lost a war against Nazis and capitalists. And Putin can't have that. He can't go down in history as the one massively incompetent Russian leader. So he has to continue the war so that his legacy, goddamn word, legacy, will be an awesome one that will be remembered forever in Russian history as Putin the Great, who took on the fight against the evil West, against the Nazis, and unified the brothers of Russia and Ukraine again. He won't stop because he cannot allow Russia to be defeated, because he will be remembered in history in that case as the massive douchebag that failed. So he will keep fighting to preserve his own legacy and also to prevent freedom from spreading into Belarus and by extension into Russia. And that is why he's terrorizing Ukraine and killing all the civilians. He's not interested in unifying the countries. He just wants Ukraine. Ukraine has massive resources untapped that Ukraine was about to source out to Western companies, essentially. And Russia said, no, we want those resources. And no, we can't have Western democracy. We can't have pride parades. Because if you get freedom, true freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, that shit can spread to Belarus. You can have a rebellion, a uprising in Belarus. And if these two countries becomes truly free, then that shit can spread into Russia and into Moscow. That's basically it. And you Vatniks, you're like, yeah, go Russia, 2 years to secure 1%. Go kick some ass. Because you have to fight NATO that is fighting to preserve peace among the NATO allies. And you have to fight, freedom, free elections. Because Zelensky is corrupt and is stealing money. Because that's not what Putin does, is it? People are not flying out of windows for nothing up in Russia if they are critical of Putin or fail Putin. And people are not living in misery outside of Moscow and St. Petersburg because Russian oligarchs and the political elite, they're not hoarding money for their own ends. Absolutely not. This is a long rant, isn't it? I'm so sorry. I'm just pissed off. That's gonna have to be the end of it. Yes. In conclusion, 2 years and Russia has secured 1%. And basically, they had success at the start of the war the first month. And ever since, Ukraine has been kicking their sorry bitch asses. Yeah, so yeah, goddamn rants. Anyway, it is what it is. Ukraine is advancing, as it appears, up in Sumy, and also south of Kupiansk. That could be very crucial for them if they need to open up a supply line north into that pocket. Anyway, yeah, that's gonna have to be it. I hope I'll see you in the next one. As always, go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.
Steel beast grinding dirt with its treads, iron heart that never bled, chain of fury spitting lead through the storm that breaks ahead. Missiles scream like a vengeful cry, shattering shadows that try to lie. Steel against the darkened sky, never bending, never shy. Bradley roars with the thunder's bite. In the black it finds the light, protects its own with a burden might. American soul, Ukrainian fire. Desert heat or frozen plain, this beast endures the endless strain. Enemies crumble, bodies slain. Steel guardian feels no pain. Crew inside with hearts of stone, shielded safe but never alone. Rolling fire into the unknown, a force that claims its throne. Bradley roars with the thunder's bite. In the black it finds the light, protects its own with a burning might. American soul, Ukrainian fire. Crew inside with hearts of stone, shielded safe but never alone. Rolling fire into the unknown, a force that claims its throne.